My pleasure to
Conversation
be
by
here.
you telling us the significance of having a day dedicated to public enlightenment when it comes to violence against women. I would also like to have your observation and some of your take when it comes to violence against women, especially girls, globally, looking at the statistics that we've just read out.
Okay, we need to recognize and understand that the violence against the woman starts even right from the womb, because there are all kinds of violence. There's verbal violence, there is physical violence, there are emotional violence, and one of the ones that everybody doesn't talk about is financial violence, where women are denied access to funding and even access to their own kind of money, even within their homes. And so the violence against women is an age old issue. And it's an age old issue and has continued because certain parameters have not been set concerning the woman. And I believe what I do, not just as a social entrepreneur, but as a minister and everything that I do, I try to teach the women who they are and what they are. Because most of the time, the girl child, simply having the girl child, is as if you are in trouble, especially when you have them in multiple. And I believe that society, everyone in the society needs to work together to end this violence against women. I mean, as much as possible to minimize it totally and eventually to eliminate it. It has no business in our world because it has happened in the past where such things have taken place and we're able to handle it as a society. So it is time for us to understand that even 100 years ago, when women couldn't vote, today women can vote. So there are certain things that we can do. Understand that the girl child is not an inferior being. And that is the beginning of all violence, is how we position the girl child mentally in our minds, in the society, and everything we do.
Thank you for joining us, ma'am. I want to ask, who are those who perpetrate violence against women?
Say that again, I beg your pardon.
Who are those who perpetrate violence against women?
Who are those? Everybody is
I'm
involved. Even
asking,
women are
is it the
involved in
opposite
perpetrating
gender
violence
or it's
against women.
both gender?
Women themselves are involved because yes, both genders are involved because they don't even realize as women that it's actually violence against another woman when you undermine and you look upon your girl child as an inferior being to your male child. That is the beginning of violence. You already have undermined that child, and the destiny of that child can be truncated because of the mindset and the cultural issues. So everybody is involved in one way or the other, even the woman to the woman. And so when we want to end this thing, we have to end it at all. So both genders are involved in this thing, and we need to end it on both sides.
Established that the perpetrators of violence against women can be from any gender. Let's look at even that coming from one woman to another. Why does this happen? What kind of orientation, what kind of cultural background will make one woman perpetrate violence against another woman?
Well, one of the downsides of womanhood that has been within the culture of our context, and even in so-called advanced culture, it is minimized, but it is subtle, it is still there. But within maybe the African culture and the Middle East and a little bit India and all those Asian nations, you can literally still see those kind of violence. Why? Number one, the woman does not recognize that as much as the man is created in the image of God, she too, she's created in the image of God. She has all the qualities of God that a man also has. Of course, they have different functionalities in the context of marriage and different structure in the context of what they can lift and can lift, or what they can do in the sense of the physical activity. But at the mental and emotional state, and even within the spirit, We all have that capacity. But when a woman grows up with an inferiority complex, like they said, the wounded wounds others. But because she herself is a wounded animal and she has not been able to have her identity, many women, unfortunately, have an inferiority complex. An inferiority complex, there are various types. We can't even go into that. There's all sorts of inferiority complexes that women have. Even the one that they call the God complex, where she thinks that she can do everything, or in the bid to please everyone, she tries to do everything. So when she sees another woman who is maybe free, capable, and have more understanding than she is, she tends to be violent, especially verbal, in her own ways because she feels that this woman has something she's looking for, but she doesn't have it. So she wants to pull that woman down. Because if you look at the gates of traditions, many women are the custodian of those evil traditions against widows, against divorcees, against individuals who, one way or the other, are failing in their life, in quotes, in certain things maybe they didn't get right. It is their own women counterparts that pull them down. The vagina mutilation that is happening in the world today is perpetuated by a fellow female who works on the behalf of, in quotes, the male to contain this woman's sexuality in their own mentality. So we need to recognize that the violence against women must be first taught. Women should first of all be the champion of their own lives before we get the respect or the dignity of the society and the men at large. Until the women themselves can stand shoulder to shoulder in understanding that these things are nonsense and is not of God, then the violence will begin to come down. Because a woman, first of all, must know who she is, and what she is capable of, and will not undermine herself, and therefore I will not undermine any other woman. And that is the main matters arising, that many women have inferiority complexes. I have dealt with women over 2 decades. I've been in this business, and that's why my core is women leadership. I've seen the fact that many women think they can lead, and because they think they can lead, they draw down others who are leading. And they say, I know she shouldn't be leading. She's overriding her husband. She's her husband's husband rapper, controlling her husband. And they say all sorts of things, but everything is coming from an inferiority complex. When a woman lacks confidence, does not know who she is, she will become a woman who will become trouble for another woman and join the men to create more trouble. Because there are women who will tell husbands, you need to beat your wife. But I mean, they know me. Everybody knows me. If I catch you, you're in trouble.
All right. I would like to have your take on this controversial argument. It's usually very debatable, mixed reactions when you put out statement like women don't need equality, they need equity. I would like to have your take in that regard. Most of the time you put this argument or this narrative here, there, and there are mixed reactions in that regard, whereby women are not being regarded the way they ought to be regarded. But I would like to have your take. Is it equity or equality?
Both. It's both. Both. Equality, equity has to do with justiciable issues. Equality has to do with identity. Every woman has an identity and a code of God in her. She is a created being, not an afterthought. It's not an afterthought because of the concept of it's not good for the man to be alone. That word has to do with the aloneness in the concept of companionship. Because already in the day God created them, male and female created him. So that is equality. And he blessed them. He didn't bless a him, he blessed a them. So all of them have the equality of God's codedness in them. But in functionality, we differ. And because I function in a certain way as being someone who helps you, I have to be strong enough to even have capacity to help you. If I don't have capacity, how do I help somebody? So even that word help is not like a housekeeper. It is a helper with dignity and with all the character of God that is situated. Then the issue of equity. Equity is about accessibility to life and all its goodness and all that God has provided for humanity. Equity is a spirit of justice and righteousness. Because sometimes people speak about justice, they forget to speak about the righteousness aspect. There is no justice without righteousness. And when we say righteousness are the standards of God for humanity, they are standards that God has for every human being to have access to education. That's the equity. If you're sending a boy child to school, the girl child ought to go to school. If they want to go up to master levels and you can afford it, or they themselves can afford it by themselves, because children are doing very well. Many of them can afford certain things even after their first degree. You give her access. If you are giving access to landed property, you give her also access. And you ensure that the parameter of even those landed property will not be wasted by a so-called husband in the future who probably comes in and wants to shortchange her. Number three, you give her equality that she herself can lead. She is born leader by God, but trained to become a leader. All of us are born by God to lead, but the potential is there, but the training is required for us to get into leadership. And so we need to recognize these two things. Two are important. Like sometimes they say, oh, men need respect, women need love. What is the definition of that? Everybody needs respect. And even everybody needs love. The dignity of my life is important. And I have, by the grace of God, a male and a female child. And both of them know how to cook. Because cooking is a life skill. Cooking is not a woman's skill. Does Queen Elizabeth, the former Queen Elizabeth, does she cook? Many women are in great heights of position. Do they cook? Does that make them less a wife? Your wife cooks for you is a privilege. I beg your pardon. It's a privilege. So we are talking about these things to also understand that equality and equity, when we come to the gate of marriage, is a different ball game of sensibility and order, of enjoying one another's company, of companionship, of romance and everything that is within that gate. But because the person is married to you, you do not have the right to undermine who she is and who God has made her to be. Your responsibility is actually to magnify that gift and multiply it, because two are meant to be better than one. But unfortunately, people get married and they are shortchanged and they diminish in their grace instead of multiplying in capacity. And these are the things that matters that we need to begin to address.
All right, so what are the consequences of violence against women on the woman who has been abused and the society in general?
The consequences are so dangerous. If you look at even in the dawn of the industrial era, and even when the women's suffrage movements began to happen, and when women liberty began to be vocally spoken in more voluminous ways, all societies where women's dignity are improved, go and do your research, that society improves. When you undermine a woman and you take away her dignity, guess what? The product, the atmosphere you create will determine the product you produce. This word was said by one Dr. Mike Mood over 20 years ago. I heard that statement and I have proven it in all ways. I've given it, I proved that principle, so that's why I always use it. What does that mean? A woman who is shortchanged will produce shortchanged emotional children. Our world today is damaged because women are damaged. You can't, as a woman, raise confident children if you yourself are not confident as a woman. It passes on to the next generation. That's why today you see a weakened generation. And there's a story about the making of slaves for 400 years. I can't remember the name, but I read that excerpt and I listened to a particular recording. And in that story, they said that when they want to make slaves, they first of all bring out the strongest of the men and call all the community members and especially the women to come and see. They tear this man into pieces with two bulls and reduces his humanity to shreds. But guess what? The intent is that the women will be so fearful enough to be the one to pass down fear to their children. Psychologists say that the child, by the age of 6, about 80% of that child's temperament, personality has been formed. The rest of his lifetime is about just instruction, shaping, and destiny. And so when we say train up the child, or catechise the child, put the child through discipline, you are preparing the child for a future. But a woman who has been weakened by a man will weaken his children. A society that weakens the woman weakens the society. So when people are doing all sorts of nonsense, they should know the consequences of what they are doing. Today, I have to deal with women who are in their 50s, in their 60s, in their 40s and 30s. I have to deal with their emotional issues because unless they are healed within and the beauty of the ashes of their life become beautiful, they will not be able to restore anything. The restoration of society, putting together of families, has to do with emotional state of that society. And that's why when people are damaged, they damage others. When people are emotional, I beg your pardon, they pull down others. And so, as a people, we need to look at the consequence, speak to women, speak to men. How we raise our children is fundamental to ending violence against women. It can become a campaign forever where people are using it to gain funding and make money and do all those sort of things. Ain't working. We need to address the root, the brutal facts of what is happening within the society. I don't know if that makes sense.
All right. According to the United Nations, the figure is almost 1 in 3 women have been subjected to physical abuse or sexual violence in one way or the other. Now, we're talking about tackling it, but the best measure should be prevention. I would like you to talk about some of the ways these things can be prevented in our society and the holistic approach to tackling this on a day like this, whereby the theme is unite and invest against violence against women. What's your take on this?
Number one, I've always said it. Thank you very much for that brilliant question. Number one, I've always said it wherever I go. The fundamental is first of all women education, women training, emotional re-evaluation. See, we have to have centers for mental health all over our countries in Africa and globally. We need where women can access places whereby they can be detoxed, they can be healed of emotional wounds. For violence, first of all, to end, both the male and the female must also be educated. The education of the woman is fundamental, but the education of the male and female is also very fundamental. So when we talk about violence against women, we need to also educate the men of the low life of abusing your wife, pulling her down, or any female in the world. In short, men that actually do that also have psychosis. They actually have inferiority complexes. It has been shown that men who are violent, or women to women, men to women, they all have psychological issues. And again, we also number 3, laws. You see, unfortunately, we are not having enough women representation in the societies, or especially within Africa, and even and in America. Of course, that is increasing, but I think the highest is in Rwanda. Then you have Russia, women who are leading. We have more women who need to be vested in this thing, more men who need to be outspoken about it. And that's why I salute a sister of mine, as it were, not blood sister, but sisterhood, the Honorable Chejushu, who was in the House of Assembly in Lagos. And she was able to fight and make sure a law was passed in Lagos. Of all the states, I would dare to say, in Nigeria, Lagos State is doing very well. They have special courts for these things to be expedited. We need women to understand that when you are being battered and bruised, it's not for your good. The children will be affected, even your husband will be affected. If you're not married, the office will be affected, society will be affected. Everything is affected by a woman who has been abused, who has a psychosis from pain and shame. And so there's the violence of gaslighting. Even as United Nations speak, we should speak about verbal abuses. Verbal abuses. Some women are so spoken down that they cannot even look at themselves even in the mirror. And so all of us, from home to home, I for one, my own violence, I received violence as a young girl in a polygamous home. I grew up in a polygamous home, and there was nothing wrong at that time. That was what my father thought he understood. But my father was not violent against any one of his daughters. I had the best father. Everyone who sees me understand that one of the best gifts that I've been given to in the world is raised by a brilliant dad. My dad didn't oppress any of us as daughters. But guess within the home setting of the family, I was verbally abused. I was somebody who was told that I was not beautiful when I was young. Until I got to university, I did not believe I was a fine girl. But now you can't take it from me because certain healing has taken place. I look at the girl in the mirror, I know who she is. But can you imagine that until university, early university, people say, oh, fine girl, fine girl, fine girl, yellow CC, fine girl. I would just say, yeah, look at these people. They want to sleep with me. But can you imagine that was not healed? It is what I will pass down into my children and give them that same lack of confidence. I see every woman, I praise them, I extol them because many times women are not praised and loved. So we need a society that understands this. People who are championing expressions, people are championing womanhood to know that it's not just about the activities, but the emotional being of that individual must be healed. So we need centers, mental health centers, counselors. The United Nations needs to work with societies where certain women are ready to be counselors for other women and to bring healing to them. Because this is not just should not just be an activity that is continuum, but should be something that has benchmark of reducing these enormous abuses against women from the very womb when they are declared a girl child. We have places where the moment is a girl child, that child is aborted. That child is aborted. So we have infanticide where the child is born as a female, and literally some family kill that girl child. You're already announcing who you are as a society, and we need to deal with that. We have people pouring kerosene on themselves or petrol to burn themselves up because, as a female, maybe they failed in their marriages in certain parts of the world. It's not done. So we need to speak out. We need to be authoritative. We need to know and tell the world we cannot continue in this evil agenda against the woman. I don't know if that makes sense.
Of course, it makes a lot of sense. But moving forward, this year's commemoration of the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women takes a deeper look at violence against women in the workplace. Now, according to the International Labour Organization, 1 in 5 women worldwide experience violence at the workplace. So, what can government and employers do to prevent this from happening?
Well, a nation like America has serious laws against such things. And even in Nigeria, it's time for us to have stronger laws for such things. And it's unfortunate that some men have been badly brought up, that you think a woman in the office is somebody you can lay hold on or have sex with or pound on or undermine her. We need equality. We need equity. And that's what I was talking about, equality and equity. And because this violence against women in the workplace is twofold. You know, when we define violence, anything that undermines and wants to destroy an individual is a violence that needs to be stopped. It is a mini terrorism at work, whereby sometimes women are not given access because they are female in boardrooms. We thank God for WIMBIS that has gotten women into boardrooms and managerial level and even MD levels. We thank God for such an organization that has helped with that path especially in the workplace. But we know for sure, whether it's at a political level or at executive level in offices, part of violence against some women in some organizations is that even when the woman is qualified, she's not allowed to rise. Okay, she's not allowed to rise. But the more important one is the amount of sexuality demanded of the woman for her to increase her career capacity rather than her mental state is a shame. Is a shame. Is a shame. It should not be even heard in societies that are civilized. So we need to have as we have whistleblowers for corruption, we should have whistleblowers for violence in the office places. So United Nations and other leaders of nations should recognize that the woman's contribution to the GDP is important. When you undermine women from contributing to society, you're actually undermining yourself. You're not doing the society a favor by denying the other gender the capacity to contribute. And so every woman should look at herself in the mirror. I mean, that's why I talk about sense. You see, when you have been violated maybe at home and you have been undermined, and you think that everybody tells you your sexuality is your first trade. No, my intelligence is my trade. My spirituality is my currency. My capacity emotionally is who I am. It is not my sexuality that makes me a female. And so I cannot bring myself down to that level and allow someone to malign or abuse me or try to be touching me in places, because I've had people who are going for contracts. I'm a minister of God, so people tell me stuff. I have people who are going for contracts and they get to the office and this man wants to be pressing their breast, holding them and doing this. This is someone else's wife. You do not covet someone else's stuff. If you think you want to be polygamous and women allow you to be and want to throw into your house, it's between you and God. But it's the foolishness of women too to undermine themselves to go and be sharing men. Sorry, I'm going to say that, because a lot of violence also comes in polygamy, where certain attitude, reduction of a woman to the position of thinking that you're just a sexual being. So we need laws. We need laws. See, you have to create laws upon laws and enforcement, like Lagos State have courts and enforcers of these things. If you report, the unfortunate thing that women are afraid to report, because that's the only bread and butter, and who knows, she's the one feeding the family. So when you even say breadwinner today, you gotta be careful what you're talking about breadwinner. The mailman is not the breadwinner. Everybody's winning bread now. And so we need to be careful in the bid of winning bread. I go and destroy my destiny, because these things go around. Before you know, people start talking and you can be shortchanged later. Use your intelligence. I don't know which woman out there doesn't know she is intelligent. You can do well by positioning yourself with capacity to solve human problems, create solutions by using your intelligence, not just using your body. And so we need to go past that. In short, that one is go past quickly. Laws should be made, and even WIMBs and what would they call the National Women Council and all the 9 yards, we need to move quickly on certain policy to safeguard the workplace and ensure that any man who tries it should get slammed, sacked, and fined a heavily or even a jail time to keep him sane. That insanity that was not corrected in his father or mother's house will be done.